The characteristic idea of the New Age, Illich believes, is system. Not system in the old sense of a system of thought or a system of bookkeeping, but system as the term came to be used in the new science of cybernetics. System as the comprehensive metaphor for the world of computers, genetic engineering, and the information revolution. The emergence of this new worldview marks the end of what Illich calls the age of instrumentality, the age during which our relationship to the world was primarily mediated by our tools. Using the word tool in its largest possible sense as any engineered, instrumental means, he argues that what characterizes a tool is the way in which it remains separate and distinct from its user. A system, he says, lacks this distinction.
When Plato or when Plinius speak about tools or devices, we call them organon. We call the hand an organon, the hammer an organon, and the hammering hand an organon. The tool is an extension of the human body. In the 12th century, we notice, partly under Arabic influence, where an increasing awareness appears that certain material objects can incorporate, can be given human intentions. That the intent to perform, to do something, can pass from the hand into the hammer. That the hammer can be seen as something made for hammering, and the sword something for killing. No matter if the hammer is taken into the hand by a craftsman, or by a little girl, or by a mill. It's that way that in the 12th century we begin to speak about it. And the sword can serve for killing or for war making, no matter if he who touches it is a noble born to the sword, or any peasant trained to a sword. It's something which is characteristic, I believe, for the epoch, which I claim comes to an end with the 80s, is this distance, I use the term distality, between the hand, the operator, and the instrument which performs the task. This distality disappears again when the hammer and the man are conceived of, or the dog on the lash of the man, as a system. You cannot anymore say that there is a distance between the operator and the device, because according to systems theory, the operator is part of the system within which he operates and regulates.
So long as there is what Illich calls distality between the tool and its user, the tool can incorporate the user's intention, whatever it may be. Tools exist at our free disposal, as means to whatever end we appoint for them. This is not true, he thinks, of systems. Systems incorporate us in the purposes for which they were designed. We act within the system's parameters. The significance of this change lies in the way it shifts our understanding of ourselves and the world. When the world is conceived as a vast, interconnected system, extending from the microscopic realm of the cell to the macroscopic systems of the biosphere, the ground is cut out from under us. A system has no ground, and no external standpoint from which we can observe or influence it. The computer offers a ready example of this shift. During little more than a generation, it has become the primary metaphor for self and world awareness. Just as the wheel once suggested the wheel of fate, and the book of nature, the computer now suggests a cybernetic world image, the world as network, the world as ecosystem, the world as genetic text. And this new image fundamentally changes the self-understanding of human beings. We no longer stand with one foot outside the world as tool users, readers of the book of nature, or persons with an eternal destiny. We've become part of the system. This change in worldview is often hailed as a return to an older, more organic conception of human beings, as a re-embedding of the body in nature. Illich vehemently disagrees. He sees the system's view as abstract and disembodying. For him, it moves away from the sensual body of old and into a purely theoretical realm that is inaccessible to our senses. This disembodiment, as Illich understands it, poses a deep threat to personal relationships, because for him it is only as suffering, embodied persons that we can turn and face one another. The example he has used as his touchstone throughout this series is the gospel story of the Samaritan. Jesus tells this story in response to the question, "Who is my neighbor?" It concerns a Samaritan, a foreigner, who is moved by the plight of a Jew who lies beaten up in a ditch beside the road and who goes out of his way to take care of the wounded man. What is important about it, in our present context, is the emphasis Jesus places on what the Samaritan actually felt when he faced the injured Jew lying in his path.
The Gospel says in that story, he felt moved in his belly, in his entrails. The Greek word for this is splanchna. That part when you sacrifice an ox to a god, you put aside as impure because there's too much shit in it. The non-noble parts of the sacrifice. Now, the Samaritan felt touched in his innards, which would be probably the most respectful way of saying it in English. He felt this sense of dis-ease in his belly when he looked at that Jew. That beaten up one provoked in him a bodily sense of dis-ease. This dis-ease was a gift from the other. He understood that this guy was in a state of misery. I carefully avoided saying in need of something. Through the attribution to myself and to others of needs, what I can give is that need satisfaction. And that really doesn't have to be personal. That doesn't have to come from me. That most probably comes with more effectiveness, efficiency, and competence if we call in the right professional or let the right agency do it. We are therefore in a situation in which the disembodiment of the I-thou relationship has led into a mathematization, an algorithmization, which supposedly is experienced. What I consider during the last couple of years the main service I still can render is to make people accept that we live in such a world. Face it. Not try to humanize the hospital or the school, but always ask, what can I, at this very moment, in the unique hic et nunc, now and here, in which I am, do to get out of this world of need satisfaction and feel free to hear, to sense, to intuit what the other one wants from me, would be able to imagine, expects with a sense of surprise from me at this moment.
The other, for Illich, is always unique, particular, unrepeatable. He is this Jew, in this ditch, on this road, not an instance of a social problem to be solved or a need to be satisfied. Need, risk, problem are all categories that tend to disembody the relationship between the Samaritan and the Jew. They imply a planned and administered response, not that gracious, free, undue inward stirring which provokes the Samaritan to take his traditional enemy into his arms. During the modern era, Illich believes, Samaritan agencies of various kinds have been the typical response to perceived social needs. But today, Illich says that he senses a growing disillusionment with this type of social outreach, and as its corollary, a resurgence of that free, anarchic spirit in which the original Samaritan acted.